From the Race Across America studios in Nederland, Colorado, I'm George Thomas. Very excited to be here with Rahsaan Bahati and his team of four-person racers coming up in the 2021 Race Across America. Rahsaan, I'd really like to get an introduction from all of the team members. Let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Hey, George. Nice seeing you. Thanks for having us. Started racing at the age of 12 years old, predominantly velodrome racing, then got into road racing and pretty much specialized in criterium racing in North America and had a little bit of stint of racing overseas. Really enjoyed bike racing for a very, very long time. Started a foundation in 2010, which helps inner city youth get into the sport of cycling. We also encourage them to participate in music and other athletic adventures. 2018, I hooked up with a good friend, Alex, who's also on the team this year, and we took on RAAM for the first time, at least my first time. And it was definitely a whirlwind. I thought I would never do it again. And here we are 2 years later. Got another four-person team with a bigger mission and some really good riders.
Alex?
So thanks again, George, for having us. Super excited for this year, especially coming on the heels of COVID and, not being able to race last year. But so I've been racing and riding my bike competitively for the last 20 years. I actually got into it, started doing triathlons, which built out to doing full Ironmans, and just really fell in love with, I got the endurance bug and heard about RAAM in 2006, became really intrigued with it. And then in 2007, ironically enough, I had a friend of mine approach me and ask me out of the blue, hey, would you ever consider doing RAAM? And I thought it was like, okay, does somebody, what little birdie got in your ear and told you about my interest in doing it? And he was putting together a four-man team in 2018 and asked me if I was interested. I didn't even hesitate to say yes. And fast forward, at the time it was about 12 months. 12 months forward, and Rahsaan and I did our first race together with two other guys, and it was an epic experience. The following year, I actually came back and did it again as a two-man team, and just really got bit by the RAAM bug. So, unfortunately, last year the race didn't happen, and I wanted to do it, but circumstances out of our control just didn't allow it. But super excited for this year, and as Rahsaan said, I'm incredibly fired up with the team that we have. We're in it to win it this year, and we get to bring Rudy and James, who's never done the race before. So Rahsaan and I are both rookies, obviously our first year, and kind of went into this with open-minded, and I'm just excited to do this race with these guys.
Thank you. James?
All right, well, thanks, George, for having us on. I was a mountain biker for the last 30 years and started in Boston and then made my way out here to California and was quite happy just doing downhill mountain biking. And about 8 years ago, I was approached by the Arthritis Foundation to do the California Coast Classic from San Francisco to Santa Monica. And it sounded easy. So a week later, I was on a road bike riding for charity down the coast. I enjoyed it. I did find it a lot easier than other people, and it convinced me to switch over to road biking at that time. Having started off with a long ride, it just seemed natural for me to continue doing long rides, longer hours, longer distance, and everybody was like, I don't understand what you're trying to do, but they liked it and they followed along, and people encouraged me. I started racing. Everybody's like, well, you need to race too. So I did some racing, and I, got through the categories and I enjoyed that. But I really do enjoy the long distance. Evans, Steve, who has done the RAAM a couple of times, he has always encouraged me to try and do this. And I've been a little bit reluctant because of the commitment, the time, and the energy that goes into the preparation. And so when Rahsaan and Alex and Rudy let me know that there was an open seat at the table, I jumped at it. I've always dreamed of doing a ride like this, a race like this, and to have the support and the network already, in play, and two knowledgeable people, it was a no-brainer. So I'm just super excited to be along. with these talented individuals.
Thank you very much. And fellow snow slider, Rudy.
Hey, George, nice to meet you.
Very good to meet you.
Yeah, Rudy Napolitano here. I moved out from New York just about 20 years ago, chasing a dream of becoming a professional cyclist. And I went pretty full blown towards that dream, and finally signed a contract with a team where, as fate would have it, Rahsaan was the leader of the team. That's how I met Rahsaan. And he was pretty instrumental in getting me on that team. I entered cycling pretty late in life, but I was able to do a lot of big racing and be on a couple of different teams. Fast forward about 20 years, I was on a training ride and Rahsaan rolled up next to me and just kind of put it out there, hey, you want to do RAAM? And, you know, Rahsaan's invited me over the years on a number of quests, and they've all been pretty, the magnitude of them has been pretty large, and they've always given me good memories, and I've always had a good time. So it took me like 2 seconds, and I committed to that. And it wasn't until maybe a month or two later that the idea and sort of the project behind the RAAM was coming out, and it was when I really realized it was going to be something very meaningful, and that's sort of how it happened for me.
Thank you very much. And Rahsaan, putting together a RAAM team is a huge responsibility. You've got a whole lot more behind this with your foundation and what you all are doing as Team Thin Energy. Can you go into the details of what this race is about for you?
Yeah, it's definitely a collective effort, though. Alex is definitely, I guess you could say, championed this entire experience, getting a lot of the ducks in a row. I guess my responsibility has been more of like on the cycling side, making sure we have our sponsors lined up, getting the riders, like facilitating all that stuff. So it's been a collective effort from our entire team. It is good that we do have some experience, but then I think looking back on 2018, and like you said in the intro earlier, a lot of teams do great things with raising money for certain charities and organizations, but unfortunately, it takes quite a bit of resources to get across the country. It's not like you could just rock up with $1,000 and get across the country by bike. So it takes a lot of resources and logistics. And the reality is a lot of that money goes into that pot. One of the things that we learned from 2018 is like, all right, it definitely takes money, but we need to go even further with this and raise money that's meaningful, that goes to an organization that we're passionate about. And as we started to ideate on what is extremely meaningful at this time, at this moment right now, given that our society is in a whirlwind, there's a lot of crazy things going on. We decided, hey, let's help some kids that are going through traumatic situations right now, and could really use a boost of self-esteem, and not only for them, but because I think any parent wants to see their child happy. So if their child's happy, that's going to roll over to the parent or the guardian, and then it can change the makeup of the entire household. So we partner with LAPD to identify families that are just going through a tough time because they lost a loved one to gun violence. And I want to make a point that it's not just your typical gun violence that you find in LA that's like gang related. These are stand-up individuals that are working class citizens that are taking care of their families that just happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and their life was taken from them. And a couple of them, it happened in front of their children. And so if you could imagine like just the traumatic stress that they're going through now at a young age, seeing their loved one, their father, their mother taken from them at the hands of someone that they didn't even know, is like Alex, we were talking earlier, you talk to the widow or whatnot, and it's hard to not get tied up in the emotional strings of it because it's so heart-wrenching. So yeah, we decided, you know what, we're going to do this. We're going to we're going to race hard and fast and to do the best we can for these families, because what we're doing over 3,000 miles is just a smidget of what, the suffering that they have to go through for years on end, and so I think it's a great cause that we have. And I know that it's going to change how they feel going forward, and plus bringing in the police too, to try to knock down that bridge, because there's a huge gap between citizens in America, specifically brown and black, and the police departments, right? So like, if we can have this feel-good story that's organic, that's real, and show that all police are not bad. Look what Detective Cedric Washington is doing to help the Bahati Foundation connect to these families to make them all better. So yeah, I mean, I could talk a lot about it. Alex has been intimately involved with talking to the families as well, and I'm looking forward to actually meeting all of them. They're going to come out to the start of the race. They're going to bring their kids out. We're going to hang out with them and just spend some time with them, and hopefully that too inspires them. Who knows, how awesome would it be like 10 years from now, one of those kids are doing RAAM.
So Alex, one of the things that really blows me away with this is the money you raise is actually going to go into an investment for the children and grow for them. And you've got financial counselors that are going to work with the families on how best to utilize the money. You're not just making a giveaway or something. You're really working to take care of these families that have been so affected. How did you come up with this idea, and how are you implementing it?
I'm not going to take credit for that, George. I mean, this was something that Rahsaan really kind of pioneered and came up with the idea just talking to, he had mentioned Detective Cedric Washington. And when Rahsaan had approached me about it and said, hey, what do you think about this? It was, to me, an absolute no-brainer, to obviously, number one, the cause behind why we're racing and the mission behind, the Bahati Foundation. But it's kind of like the gift that keeps on giving, right? And as you know, one of the missions that the Bahati Foundation has is that there's this educational component behind it. And I can tell you, speaking from personal experience growing up, is that I was never taught as a kid how to manage money. I just kind of learned as I grew up. But to take it even a deeper level of what we're going to be doing, and then putting it into these investment funds for these kids as they get older, they can access the money and be able to use it smartly. I think it's great. One thing I do want to note too is that, Rahsaan had mentioned, I've had the chance to personally speak to each of the families, and I'll be honest, I mean, it was pretty emotional, and I would get choked up a couple of times just hearing their stories. And but what takes it even a deeper level is these families had no idea until about a week ago that they were selected to be part of this mission or event. They didn't ask for it. The way that it happened was there was a pool of hundreds of families that we could have picked, and LAPD came back and said, here's who we think is deserving and appreciative of it. What do you think? And we kind of shortlisted it to these 3 families, and they were contacted out of the blue by the detectives that were involved on their cases and said, hey, we have these guys that are going to race their bikes across America, and they're going to race for you and your family, and they're going to raise money for your kids. And it was shocking to them that somebody would go above and beyond under their circumstances to do this. So it even takes, I mean, it's an emotional ride, I think, for all of us. And when we all get down there in Oceanside that morning of, and the families and the kids are going to be there, I think it's really going to hit close to home of why we're doing this. So it's super special, and I'm incredibly blessed to be able to be with these guys to do something that I think is going to affect a family for a really long time.
And Rahsaan, I just wanted to mention, you brought up a relationship with the police department and citizens. And as I was looking through the bio and the write-up of your team, I noticed you have an LAPD member on your crew.
Yeah, actually, Detective Cedric Washington is gonna crew for us. Of course, he's a cyclist, but he's also one of those people that just loves to give back. He volunteers at our local velodrome. He's always getting kids on the track. He's always encouraging women to get on the track and just be active. and he's a Marine, and he's just one of those guys. He's like always active and doing something. So yeah, he's going to be instrumental. He's our co-crew chief. This is going to be his first RAM. It's so funny though. He thought he could ride. He's like, I'm gonna bring my bike so I can ride a little bit every day. I was like, you have no idea. You're not gonna have time to ride, But that's just how much energy he has. And yeah, he's been instrumental. He's been working with the Bahati Foundation now, probably for about 3 or 4 years, just helping us, have partnerships within the city and, helping identifying families and kids that are deserving. We give out bikes every year during Christmas time, and he's helped us again identify children that are stand up, respectful, making good grades, the whole 9 yards. And these are the kids that should be rewarded, and we want those bikes and the things that we do for them to go a long way. So yeah, he's great for us.
Hey, George.
Oh, go ahead, Alex.
Sorry, can I just kind of piggyback off of that? Because I think having Cedric on the team, there's even a deeper underlying story with him, and there's a direct connection with RAM. In 2010, you're probably going here, but his partner was actually shot in the line of duty, and she was paralyzed from the neck down. And well, actually, that happened in 2006, and then in 2010, she actually did RAM on a hand bike and finished the race. And Cedric was there in 2010 at the start line to see her off. And what's super cool about his story is that you fast forward 11 years later, and now he's actually doing the same course that his former partner did back in 2010, but he gets to experience it on a different level.
Yeah, it was a very powerful finish. I was there for that one.
Yeah.
Now, James, you've got a big race in front of you. You are not really familiar with Race Across America. You've done some long rides, but what was going through your mind, first of all, when you were asked about it? What are some concerns you have about the coming week?
Well, one of the biggest concerns is riding a TT bike. Took it out last night, tried it out, and it's super excited. I like to go fast, but yeah, the bike handles very differently, so that's a big concern. But yeah, when I was invited, it just was, it's just an opportunity that couldn't turn down, and especially with the foundation and everything, it's just very exciting. This is a different format as well, though. I'm used to doing, 8, 10, 24-hour rides, and the way we're going to structure is we're going to do 30-minute racing and then rotate out, 2 guys doing a 6-hour shift. And so, yeah, that's a very different approach for me. And all my trainings be like, well, maybe my partner won't be able to ride that day, so I'll just be able to do 6 hours. But I know that's not going to happen. We're going to be racing hard 30 minutes at a time. So a lot of transitions, and yeah, I'm nervous about that, the transitions and the structure around it. But I'm confident that the other team members, Alex and Rahsaan, know exactly what they're doing, and they're going to use my legs the best way they can. And I'm ready.
Rudy, same question. Oh, I think you're on mute, Rudy.
How's that? Can you hear me?
There we go. Yep.
Sorry about that. I had it on mute. I think what I'm looking forward to the most is just being in an extreme situation and being a little bit unbound from, being off the grid a little bit, being out there and doing something, getting out of my normal routine, making some good memories with some good friends. Something I think about a lot is how I'm going to relate to this in 10 or 15 years. I'm going to have all these stories that I've accumulated throughout my life. And this is definitely going to be something that's going to be hopefully my intuition is that this is going to be one of my favorite stories to tell. I've never done this race. I can't tell you, what I'm expecting to happen. I know there's going to be ups and downs. I'm looking forward to that process of going through some really hard times and coming out on the other side. The sun's coming up. It's a good day, things like that. My main concern is just that we all get through it safely. This is, obviously something we're going to struggle with is lack of sleep, being out on the open roads with cars. So my number one concern is that I get home safe to my fiance and everyone gets home safe to their loved ones.
Rahsaan, what's unique about this team? You're a veteran, you know what's coming up. You're here to win. What was going through your mind when you were asking and selecting people to be on the team? And again, what is it about this one that kind of makes you think, I think we can race for a win here?
Yeah, I think the main thing is I was concerned about is one, finding a group of guys that can just get along, right? And I think that's the main thing. No matter, you could have the best guys in the world, but if there's infighting, the trip is going to suck, you know. And looking back to 18, we had, I think, 18 crew members plus 4 riders and didn't have one issue. And if we did, they hit it well, you know. And I remember saying in our, unfortunately, we won't have the banquet, but I remember saying at the banquet amongst our table is like, this group of people, I can see myself hanging out at their house, having a drink, barbecue, whatever it may be, because that's how down to earth everyone was. Everyone knew their role. Everyone went beyond their role. And so that's what I was thinking about when picking a team. Like, one, who would just be cool to hang out with? Like, you know, and there's only a few people in my life that's been in my life for a long time I've never had issues with. And it's like, those are the people you want to be with. And then 2, of course, you want good riders. James, you know, I think I've done maybe 2 or 3 rides with him when he's ridden, you know, 10 hours and I did like 5. And I remember one day before I think I really knew you, James, maybe did you ride 24 hours in a day and then you showed up and did NPR the same day? Didn't you do something like that?
I rode all night. I started at 7 o'clock at night. I did the Tour of LA race, and then it was finished at 5. So I had 2 hours to kill. So I pulled up and did NPR too.
Yeah, which is a local group ride. And here I am, like, with crust in my eye, I can barely get up to do the 2-hour group ride. And he's been riding for 15 hours already. And then, like, knowing Rudy, Rudy mentioned earlier, we were teammates. He was always a good teammate, you know, on and off the bike. Just, we get along very well. And then Alex, we've had a relationship probably since 2010. So when he suckered me into doing it again, it was my responsibility to go out and find the other 2 riders. And quite frankly, we had a number of riders that we were going to select from. And at the end of the day, Alex just said, you know what, you know the riders, you pick them, you know. And I think we put together a really good team, very dynamic. As you know, I'm a crit racer, you know, so like the whole endurance thing is not my game, but I've been riding a bike now for 22 years. So I do have that as an advantage. James, as we mentioned, rides a lot, loves these endurance rides. And then Rudy, I think, is just an all around rider who brings a lot to the table. He doesn't look like a climber, but he can climb. He can definitely go fast on the flats. He knows how to handle his bike. And then Alex brings in all of the things that I just mentioned as well. Even, you know, some of the spin instructing stuff will, I think, translate to RAAM, you know. And one thing I would say about Alex that I told somebody the other day is I think he's very mentally strong. And I remember that from 2018 when I was like completely cracking going through Pennsylvania. Alex is like the Energizer bunny, just like ready to go. I was like, dude, how do you have so much energy, man? Like, so I think we have a really good team in that aspect.
Alex, what's the draw? Why do you want to keep coming back to do Race Across America? You've got a really
good question. I want to hear this.
I feel like this is a question that we all should have a beer with, right?
There's the finish line. I would happily join you for that.
Well, you have an open invitation, George. So we'll be looking forward to doing that and cracking a beer when we cross the line in Annapolis. But you know, for me, I have been riding my bike competitively, like I said, for about 20 years, and when I get on my bike, that's like my zen, right? Like I feel like I'm just in a whole different, you know, frame of mind. It's like I don't, it's hard to put into words, but I just love to ride and I love to get out and the endurance and you know, spend time with myself, and I can just kind of let my mind wander. But, you know, just being so passionate about cycling and, you know, competing from, you know, doing crits and road races. I mean, you name it across the spectrum. I've done Hoodoo 500 a couple of times. But you look at RAAM, and everything about cycling you're going to experience doing the race of RAAM, from weather conditions to topography to racing 24 hours around the clock, night and day. And it's just and it's not an easy race. RAAM's considered the toughest bike race in the world, and it will challenge you not only mentally, but obviously not only physically, but the mental side of it as well. I tell a lot of people, and they ask me, it's funny because I say to them, it's like, yeah, I'm going to race my bike across America, and they're like, oh, okay. And people are like, oh, it's a tour, so it's going to take you like 3 weeks to go do the race. I'm like, no, we're going to race, and we're planning to be in Annapolis in 5.5 to 6 days. That's our goal. And that look you get from them is like, wait a second. It takes me like 3 or 4 days to drive across the country, and you're going to do it on your bike in 5 or 6. But whenever you start explaining to them about the race and what's involved in it, I think the biggest challenge for race, and Rahsaan nailed it. I mean, there's the mental component behind it. And as an endurance athlete, for me, it's like, okay, how far can you push yourself? And then can you go a little bit further beyond that? So, this will be my 3rd year to do it. It won't be my last year. So, it's in the blood, and I love the race. I mean, and I think it's not just me going out, but it's like, all these other guys talked about here, my teammates. It's really about the team. And the one thing I do want to note here is, it takes an army to finish this race and to do this race. And, this year we have a crew of 14, and I'm excited to do this with them. And I've been talking to each of them individually. And I said, look, guys, at the end of the day, this is not just about 4 guys that want to go ride their bike. Yeah, we want to go race. We want to win. We're going to obviously bring as much awareness as we can around the Bahati Foundation, but have fun doing it, because this is going to be a life experience that you're going to go through. And that's what RAAM is all about. So take it all in, stop and smell the flowers a couple of times. You're kind of going on this race, and enjoy it, because that's when you kind of wrap everything up about RAAM, that's what it is.
Rahsaan, where can people go to find out more information about your organization, your foundation, and where can people go to make a donation?
Yeah, so the easiest way to learn about the Bahati Foundation is to just type in bahatifoundation.org. We are a 501c3, and you can read about everything that we do. RAAM and what we're doing, raising funds for these families, is just one extension of all the other things that we've done throughout 10 years. And what we're looking to do in the future. One of the bigger things that we're working on now is actually creating a bike park in Central and South LA, to give a safe place for kids to actually ride their bikes and don't have to worry about traffic and cars and all that stuff. Yeah, so you could make donations to RAAM specifically. You can do a general donation. You can donate if you're passionate about music, education, all those different things. So you can track where your money's going and see the initiatives that we're working on. Yeah, and we encourage everyone to continue to donate. We still want to reach that $50,000 mark. I think we're around 37,000 right now. So we're getting close, thanks to everyone that has participated and donated. Yeah, so we're going to keep that donation tab open probably a couple weeks after RAAM, and perhaps do some fun, unique things with our bikes that we rode across, and maybe some of the jerseys and helmets, and to really continue to get the community involved and share the RAAM experience with people post RAAM.
Conclusion, Alex, let's start with you. 2 sentences. What do you want to get out of this race?
I want to finish the race like I did in 2018, when you cross that finish line and you kind of reflect back on that entire journey that we took together as a team, as a crew, and we got a chance to really get to know one another, and deepen the relationship of the friends that you make along this route. And these are my teammates. We're going to do something extremely cool. And to be able to do it with these guys, I love them like my brothers, and to do this race with them is special to me. So that's what this year means to me, for RAAM.
James.
I want to race my bike. I want to race it fast, and I'm just so excited to just get those first few pedal strokes in and hear the wind going by and all the preparations behind and just enjoy it. See America like I've never seen before. And in the process, raise some good money for a good cause.
Rudy.
I'm with James. I think for me personally, just to be able to dedicate 6 days completely to going really hard with a team is something I'm looking forward to. But I think for me, the number one thing is to use this as a platform to raise some money and change some lives.
Rahsaan.
Yep, I piggyback on all three. Just the experience again, which the first time was incredible. And also like the reason why we're doing it, the bigger picture. So like I've always used certain things in my life to motivate me when I'm like hurting or struggling. So I'm definitely going to hurt doing the RAAM, definitely going to struggle doing RAAM. And I just keep telling myself, think about why you're doing it, you know, and while we're doing it is to help the lives of others. And so that's what I know I'll get out of it. And at the end of the day, like Rudy said earlier, we get to Annapolis safely, good time, win, lose or draw, crack a beer, and we'll forever have that memory. So
follow the team's progress at raceacrossamerica.org. And to make a donation, go to the Bahati Foundation.org. Alex, Rahsaan, James, Rudy, thank you very much for taking the time to chat with us. Great visiting with you.
thank you, George.
Thanks,
Thank you.
George. See you in Annapolis.